So good morning and welcome back guys. My name is Akriti and today we are going to solve one more question. Let's start with the question. Here is the question for today. This is a question number 118 Pascal's triangle. Okay. So in the question it is given that given an integer num rows. Okay. So what we have to do, we have to return the first num rows of the Pascal triangle, and in the animated image given below, you can see what actually Pascal triangle is. Okay, so let's discuss it first of all. What actually Pascal triangle is? So what happened in the Pascal triangle? In the first row of the Pascal triangle, the one and only element is 1. In the second row as well, the one and only element is the 2 and only both of the element are 1. So in the third row, what happens? The element at the boundary of the rows are 1, and the element at the middle is equals to the sum of the two element in the above row, which are at the same index and at the index which is less than the index of the element. Like here, let's talk about 1. So here you can see in the second row, both the element are boundary element. So let's give them 1. Now in the third row, the boundary element are 1. Here you can see the first element and the third element is 1. But when we will be talking about the middle element, then it's in the third row, what is the index of the 2? So 0, 1 and 2. So index of 2 is 1. Okay. Now, so in order to calculate to what we have to do, we have to go in the row which is just above the row we are talking about. Right now we are talking about the second 0 1 2 third row. Okay, so we go in a row which is just above that row, like this row. Okay, so in this row what we have to do, we have to sum two element which is at the same index as that element. What is the index of 2 in third row? So 0 1. Index of 2 is 1 in third row. So what we have to do, we have to sum two elements from the second row whose index is 1 plus whose index is 0. Like here you can see the index of 1 is 0 and index of 1 is 1. So we will sum both these elements. Now let's discuss about the fourth row. Here you can see the last element, the corner elements are 1. Of course, we can simply see the first element and the last element is 1. And when we will be talking about the middle element, then in case of element at the first index, okay, index number 1. So what we have to do, we have to go in the upper row and we have to sum element with the index with the same index plus one less index. Like we will go in this row, and since the index of 3 is 1, so we will sum element which is in the above row at 0 index plus which is in the above row at 1 index. So 1 plus 2 2. Now in the same way for this 3, we will go in the above row. Since the index of this 3 is 2, so we will sum those element which is at 2 index and which is at 1 index. So 2 is at 1 index and 1 is at 2 index. Okay. Let's talk about the last row. You can see the last element is 1 and the element, like let's talk about this 4. So index of this 4 is what is the index of this 4? We can see this is 1. So we will go in upper row and we will sum two element with index 0 and index 1. Now let's talk about this 6. We will go in the upper row since the index of this 6 is 2. So we will go in the upper row and we will sum two element which is index 2 and which is index 1. In this way, we will be taking the sum of two element who have two element from the upper row which have index same as that element plus which has index one less than as that element. So this way we can get the and this way we can get the element of rows of the Pascal triangle. So here you can I hope you understood how to get the element of the rows of the Pascal triangle. Now how we are going to tackle this problem? So this is the way I have explained you how to get the elements. In the same way we are going to solve our question. So let me declare a vector which is going to store 2D vector, I'll say, which is going to store the Pascal triangle, or we can say rows of the Pascal triangle. So I am declaring a 2D vector. Okay, let's call this fact1, or simply call it result, because this is what we are going to return from our function. Now I'm going to declare another vector. Let's call it a temporary vector. Oh, this is a temporary vector. Now I'll execute my loop for I should be less than the number of rows we want, which is num rows. Okay. Now what we are going to do, as soon as we will enter this loop, or we will first of all clear our temporary vector. Okay, because we want a new vector, temp dot clear. We are clearing our temporary vector first because we want an empty vector to work with. Now we will run one more loop. Now what we are going to check, if the elements of the rows are boundary element or not. So the condition of boundary element is either index of that particular element is 0, or index of that particular element is the last index. So if j equals to 0, or uh, if j is equals to I, then these element will be the boundary element. And we know, in case of boundary element, what we had to do, we have to store a 1 in its position. So what we have to do, we have to we have to push that particular element in a temp and store its value as 1. Now if this condition doesn't satisfy, then of course the element will be the will be somewhere in the middle. So what we had to do in that case, let's declare integer which is an element, and we have what we had to store, we have to go in the upper row, and we have to store the sum of the two element, where two elements are at index of the element which we are talking about, and one less index of that element. Like we have to store result of I of j plus result of, oh sorry, we have to go in the one upper row, so I minus 1 result of I minus 1 of j minus 1. Okay, like here right now we were talking about the ith row. Okay, so we go in one upper row, like which was the I minus 1, which was the I minus 1, because right now we are in ith row. So we have stored I minus 1. So in order to store the element in ith row, which is at jth index, so we are storing the sum of the two element from the upper row whose index are j and j minus 1. Okay, so this was a now we will be pushing this element in our temp dot push back element. Okay, this was the approach. Now when this loop will be executed, we will be pushing our temp in our result array. So result dot push back temp. So I hope this is the complete solution. Now what the final thing which we have to do is to return our result from a function. We have returned our result. Let's see what happened. So you can see our solution is accepted, and as soon as I'll submit it, it's submitted. Okay, as you can see, it beats 100% of the solutions. So here it was the solution of our question. So let me explain it once again. The first and foremost step was to declare a result vector, which is a 2D vector, and yet another vector which is a temporary vector, which we are going to clear every time we will be storing another row of our result vector. Like let's suppose I'm starting with the first row. So when I have to store the first row, I'll use a temp vector, and when I'll start storing element in the second row, firstly I will clear my temp vector because I'm going to utilize this vector only again and again for storing the rows of a result vector. That's why I need to clear it first. Okay, so I'm starting my for loop, which will be starting from the zero index, and it will continue till the nums row, which is the number of rows we have to return. Now first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm clear my time vector. Now I'll start one more for loop, which is going to start from the zero index and which will continue till the I, where I is the number of row we are storing element. Okay, like right now I'm storing element in first row, which is whose index is 0. So I'll start from 0 and I'll less than equals to 0. I'll start from 0 and I'll continue till 0 because I only have to store one element because it is the first row. When I will be talking about the second row, the index of the row will be 1. So I'll start from 0 and I'll continue till 1. Okay, so this way we will be storing two elements because this is our second row, and in third row our index will be 2. So I will be starting from 0 and I will be continuing till 2, because here we have to store three elements. So this is the way of storing. This is the so because of this for loop we are storing as many element as the number of as the row number. Okay, so what we are doing here, we are just simply checking if the element is the corner element or not, because we have already seen in this picture that all the corner elements are have a value 1. Okay, in Pascal triangle, those elements which are at corner, like this, all those have value 1. So we are checking if the element is corner. So if the element is corner, then in our we will simply push 1 in our temp vector. Otherwise, what we are doing, we are declaring an element integer, and we are storing the sum of two elements which are in the upper row and whose index are same index as our element in the index one lesson. Like here you can see, if we are talking about 3, then we will be storing this plus index less than this. Okay, so this way we are storing. Now we will push our temporary vector in our result here, and at last we will be returning our result. So it was the solution of the question. I hope you all have understood the solution well. If you're facing any query or have any doubt regarding the question, feel free to ask in comment box. Thank you so much.